Hi, and welcome to the CAFMA Connect. I'm your host, Fire Chief Scott Freitag, and with me today, our special guest and new HR manager, Patty Murphey. Patty,
Hi.
welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So we're going to talk about you, but I want to address something really quick that I heard last night. So last night we did something. I know you're new to government, law enforcement, and fire. We did something that has never been seen before yesterday. We had law enforcement chiefs and fire chiefs together out socially for drinks. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But that's not the highlight. The highlight is last week we did a segment about rumors. And last night while I was at this little social gathering, I heard another rumor. So I just want to kill it right now. The rumor is that I heard from Chief Dura at Prescott that he's trying to address, and well, because it's going around Prescott, I'm sure it's somewhere around CAFMA, is that Chief Dura and myself are working on merging Prescott Fire and CAFMA together. Now, you can do that as a fire authority, but the answer to that is no, we're not. We're simply working to create efficiencies between the two agencies. We work very closely together, and it's important that we strengthen the relationships between the two. And there's going to be areas where we work more closely together than we used to. It doesn't mean that we're joining the agencies. We're just doing what should be expected of us to protect the Quad Cities. So, rumor is Prescott, CAFMA, trying to come together as one. Answer is no, we're not. We're just trying to work together more closely than we have in the past. So,
Perfect. Glad we cleared that up.
Yes. And you know what? I think we probably need to do a monthly rumor segment, Jonah. I mean, based on, oh my God, the stuff that comes up.
Yeah, I think that a monthly true false is not a bad idea.
If we look at rumor development, I would say that firefighters are the next level expert.
The question is, could we start a rumor and see how long it takes to get back to the podcast? So,
we actually could.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
That might be fun.
Be warned, something's coming out. It's not going to be true, but we're going to start it. So let's
and we could trap the person. So we could say we could only tell one person and say don't tell anybody,
and see how far it goes, how quickly. If we say it on B shift, you'll get introduced to B shift, Patty. If we say it on B shift, it will spread like wildfire, even if they know it's not true. It's a sport for B shift. B shifts are considered children. And so when you see pictures of like fire engines in rivers and lakes or upside down, typically we just figure it was B shift. So brief introduction to what B shift is for our new HR manager. With that said, Patty, welcome to CAFMA. We're glad you're here. I appreciate you coming on. You've been in the office now a total of 3 days. And so Chief Tharp was like, you're not even going to give her time to get acclimated? Like, no, not really.
No, I'm good.
Yeah. You're outgoing, though. So I wasn't concerned about that.
No, I'm excited to be here. And we've been talking about the possibility of me coming on here with you for a little bit. So,
right.
Yeah. So, no, I was excited to come and to be on all your tens of viewers I know have been wanting to meet me and probably messaging, sending campaigns. So
we were going to have a call-in line so they could visit with you, but we didn't get that set up this time. Chief Neminsky, I talked to him before I came over. He called, and when I answered the phone, I said, no, Doug, you cannot be on the podcast this week. It's Patty's turn.
Was he sad?
No, not really. He was not. But he said, hey, you know what? Having Patty on, you might get 20s of viewers.
Oh, well, there we go. Oh, that makes me feel good. Oh, maybe we will.
Well, and I know you have a plan to get out and visit fire stations. That's kind of unfolding right now. But when you look at the number of stations and the number of shifts, that's a lot. It's going to take a while. Plus, we have the non-ops divisions and fleet and facilities and all of that. And so I thought this would be a good platform to at least try to introduce you to everyone until you can get out and see them in person.
Yeah, that's a great, for sure, because I definitely want to get out and get to the stations and meet everybody in person. But like you said, I think this is day 3 that I've actually been in the office. So I'll definitely have it. It's on my list, and I'm going to make it happen. It's one of the things I've actually really been looking forward to.
Well, and we know that we have provided you a mountain to climb coming into HR. There's a lot of work to do, a lot of things to sort through and get up to speed on and change and shift and adjust. And so it's a tremendous amount of work. And we've said it to you privately. We're going to say it here. You have our absolute unwavering support. So if there's anything at all that you need, you can come to us and ask, and we will make sure that any roadblocks are removed for you and any information you need that we provide. And the great thing is, I mean, really, if you ask us a question, we may not know the answer, but we're really good at making stuff up. And we say it with enough confidence that you'll think it's true.
Yeah, so that works.
Yeah, because we're supportive like that. So your first week here, I want to go back. We'll go back to talking more about your history and where you came from. But I wanted to mention the day you started, because you called me and said, hey, here's the date I'd like to start. Does that work? I was left with 0 adult supervision.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Chief Tharp wasn't here. Nobody was here in HR, so I just went to Karen in finance, and I'm like, hey, does this work with payroll? And she said yes. And then later I decided to look at the calendar, and that day was the day a lot of us were heading down to the AFCA conference. That said, I think it worked out well, because since you hadn't been in the fire service before or had much exposure to it, having you come in and then go directly to that conference for the week to get exposed to the fire service culture, meet some peers from around the state, but really the opening type ceremonies, to see what goes into that with the honor guard and the pipes and drums. I mean, that is a fire service tradition. So with that, what did you think about that week?
Yeah, I thought it was actually a perfect introduction. It was a lot because I was getting so much information
Sure.
in the seminars, but to see the opening ceremonies, like you mentioned, it was moving for me, quite honestly. I was choked up, and then just to get to meet people and hear about culture and attend seminars about challenges within the fire service, within HR. I thought it was actually perfect because it just gave me that chance to really soak it all in,
Right.
in terms of what kind of a bigger picture of what the fire service is all about.
And that's awesome. And the other reason for having you go down there was that was going to be a good introduction to how things can be and should be before you actually get introduced to us long term. We wanted to start you off on a positive note rather than here's a stack of crap that you have to deal with right now.
I thought it was great. And because it's always, those first few days are really hard. I mean,
Right.
As an HR professional, I've hired people and onboarded people. And the first, let's face it, couple days, couple weeks, couple months, they're tough. You don't really know what your job is yet. You're still trying to figure out how to log on to things.
Right.
So it can be challenging. So when you have something like that a new hire can go to, I think it just provides such a great opportunity for learning and growing and
Right.
meeting people. So I was thrilled that it lined up that way, actually.
That's great. And I was kind of glad it lined up that way as well. Had somebody been there to redirect me somewhere, they might have said, hey, this probably isn't the best week. But once we had it set, I thought, hey, let's shift a little bit and do this. So about you.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in San Clemente, California. It's a small beach town right in between LA and San Diego, very South Orange County. So,
Okay.
I grew up there. My parents are still there, I have family there.
Okay.
So, California girl, so don't hate me. But I lived all over in my adult life.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived in Texas and Kentucky, and lived up in Spokane, Washington. So I've moved quite a bit. Always kind of came back to California, and that's where my support system was in my family when my girls were young, and that was important.
Right. So, and if I remember correctly, you went to San Diego State University.
UC
correct?
San Diego.
UC
Yeah.
San Diego.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because I was thinking when I looked at that information on your resume that my wife would have been there about the same time, but I think she was at San Diego State.
Yeah. It's a common mistake. But yeah, I was at UC San Diego. So that was great. And it wasn't far from home. So it was perfect. Could still go home on the weekends. Wasn't quite ready to not go home. But yeah, and I majored in literature, which I thought I was going to be a teacher.
Right.
And that road didn't end up happening. But as often happens with, life, you kind of find your career based on life and what happens and jobs that come up. So
Right.
I started working in retail management and then slowly moved into recruiting and human resources from there. And I really enjoyed it and just never went back and got that teaching credential. So
Understood. It's interesting you say that because we had Josh out of the warehouse in, and we interviewed him. Interesting background as well. He went to Cal Poly and got a degree in mathematics and got his teaching certificate, and then decided he didn't really like kids all that much. And so he loves working in the warehouse. He found his passion, and that wasn't it.
Isn't that the first question you ask when you decide to become a teacher is, do I want to hang out with kids all day? Why is it the last question that you ask?
I would think it would be a question up front before I went to school. Do I want to deal with kids all day or not?
Right. It's a lot. But apparently that training will serve me well with B shift, right?
It will. It will serve you well with B shift. And I didn't think I was going to...
Is that okay that I joke around with B shift already and I haven't even met them? Okay.
No, absolutely. It will make them feel warm and fuzzy inside.
Okay, good.
Because they're your focus. So trust me, you're going to get good feedback on that. And the reality is, Jonah and Patty, that if you're a fire chief, while not necessarily a teacher, although we do present things, you are really dealing with children all day. It doesn't matter which shift, you're dealing with children all day.
And I think a lot of things in teaching and human resources, they cross over anyway.
Yes.
You need to, be a good listener, be patient, like people, like dealing with people, like talking to people, like solving problems, all those kinds of things. So for me, it just was a career I fell into by luck, but I'm glad that I did. And I've just kind of let it take me where it's taken me. And now it's taken me to Arizona, which is really cool.
Yeah, no, and we're glad that you chose to come here and work with us. And I'll tell you, the literature degree, personally, I think there's a connection to the HR side of things. Just like when I was going to college and I was going for mass communications, but I was a firefighter at the time. And I found that the humanities classes I took have been applicable throughout my entire career. Who would have thought that Greek mythology could be used anecdotally in presentations in the fire service? But there it is.
There you go. So, and I think one of the best things I learned was just how to be a good writer.
Right.
And that's what I know. I have a daughter who's in college, but she's still not really sure what she wants to do. But I told her, don't worry about it. Just get the degree and learn all the things and focus on something. She's a great writer as well. And she's really likes to read and write. And I think that serves you well no matter what occupation you choose,
right.
Especially with email and just being a good communicator is something that it's not as easy as you think. A lot of people aren't very good at it. So,
well, if she is a great writer, another career field she could consider is firefighting.
Okay.
And paramedic. Because you have to be a good writer on those reports, and most of our folks are not. So if we can hire good writers, that's part of it.
There you go. Yeah.
Because that's an important part of the job if you think about it.
It's something I think people don't realize or even know. Yeah.
And when you're writing that, when you're documenting that scene and what you did and what occurred, when you end up in court over something, the document you wrote is the only thing you can refer back to. So what we try to tell people is your report is not for me as the fire chief. It's not for the patient or the person whose home's burned down. That report is for you. It's for you to refer back to. So being a great writer is definitely something that's vital to this position. So tell us about your kids. How many do you have?
Okay, so I have two girls, a 16-year-old, almost 17, and 20-year-old.
Okay.
So my youngest is going to be a senior in high school, and my oldest is at the University of Arizona in Tucson.
Oh, very nice.
So yeah, she'll be starting. It's technically her second year, but it'll only be her second semester there. She did a full year and a half at junior college just because of COVID and everything. Decided I wasn't going to pay out-of-state tuition for her to work out of her bedroom. So
I understand that.
So she did junior college but now she's at U of A. She absolutely loves it, and she's doing really well there.
Great. So what brought you to Arizona? Because when you interviewed with us, you were already in the process of leaving California and moving to Prescott.
Right. So it's an interesting story, I think. I hope you think it's interesting. I hope your viewers think it's interesting.
All 10 of them.
Yeah. So, well, my fiance, Lance, he went to Embry-Riddle. And so he lived in Prescott 30 years ago when he went to Embry-Riddle, but he loved it, always wanted to come back here. So we came out here for a little weekend getaway, and I really loved it, of course. I mean, how could you not? And we looked at some houses and thought, wow, could we do this? Maybe we could think about living here. And that was over a year ago. It's been a long process because it was kind of a big move to leave California and our families. He's from San Clemente as well.
Okay.
We actually went to high school together, but we did not know each other in high school, but we have about 5 million mutual friends. So wow. I don't know how we didn't know each other, but we didn't. So we met after high school, but that's what brought us here is just his love for Prescott. And he had a little cabin here a couple years ago and just has always wanted to come back here. So
well, that's awesome. It worked out really well for us because when we were talking to the recruiter, he said it's going to be difficult to get someone to move to this area.
Why? It's beautiful.
The cost of living.
Yeah.
Housing.
Yeah.
I know Humboldt Unified offered a position to, I think it was a chief financial officer, one of the highest paid positions in a school district. And the person declined because they couldn't find housing. And we're seeing it at the hospital, at the cities, the towns, police department, fire department, teachers.
It's tough right now.
It's a
really
challenge.
is. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, so I was already planning to come here. I had another job, but I thought this was a great opportunity, and I thought, why not see what happens?
Yeah.
So, and it happened. So it was just meant to be, I guess.
So give us some of the background that you have in HR.
Sure. So I started, like I said, in human resources, in retail management, running the store. I had to do the hiring and the performance management and all of that, but it was from more of a managerial standpoint. And then I became a recruiter for a retail. It was the Express. It's owned by the Limited Corporation. I was their regional recruiter for all of California, Oregon, and Washington.
Oh, wow.
And so I traveled to all the stores and supported the managers in hiring for, holiday and that kind of stuff where they have to have a lot of people on staff.
Right.
So I did that. And then I left retail, went to work for, it's now FedEx, Kinko's or FedEx, but it was just Kinko's at the time. And I was an HR generalist for Kinko's. It was a great company to work for at the time. And then I decided to be a stay-at-home mom. And I left that position, which was a difficult decision, but I really wanted to just be a mom. So I was a stay-at-home mom for 15 years. And then I re-entered the workforce and with a startup company in San Clemente, a small cybersecurity consulting firm. And they only had maybe 3 or 4 employees when they brought me on just to consult 5 or 10 hours a week. And slowly they grew and they needed me 15 hours a week. And then they needed me 20 hours a week. Then they got a big client and they needed me to recruit a bunch of people for them. And then eventually it became a full-time position for me. And I was with them for 5 years and helped to grow them to, a much larger company, 3 separate entities that included a training company as well as an app that they run in addition to the cybersecurity consulting.
Wow. So jumping from cybersecurity to firefighters.
Right.
I don't know if IT people, Jonah, have the same childish mentality that we do in the fire service.
It can be worse.
It can be.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's some quirky little things sometimes with IT folks.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I think what I enjoyed the most about that company was the culture, and that's what I think drew me to CAFMA as well as the culture. The culture was just so fun, inviting. The people I worked with, I really sincerely enjoyed working with them, wanted to spend time with them when we weren't at work, and worked really hard with the VP of Operations to build the culture that we had there. And when I started, meeting people at CAFMA and exploring this opportunity, I was, of course, blown away by the culture here of the firefighters and the family and the inclusiveness. And that is very similar actually to the culture I came from. So
that's great. And we try to build that type of culture here. We want people to have fun when they come to work, because if you can't have fun when you come into the office, then you're going to end up finding someplace else to work. And personally, I like to work in a fun environment. And I think the other senior staff and the other members of the management team and the other folks that are in the admin offices, definitely in the fire stations and some of the other divisions, they enjoy coming in and working because they know it's going to be fun. There's going to be challenges. We go through tough times, ups and downs, just like any other family. But we're able to work through those things because we have good relationships that we build. And I mean, I was going to get out of the fire service once when I lived in the St. Louis area, and it wasn't long before I moved here that I had thought about getting out. And I was backing out of my driveway one day, and I looked at my helmet in the backseat of my staff vehicle, and it just struck me that I can't. I love this profession. I can't leave it. I need to, at the time when I was in St. Louis, not in Arizona, I needed to find a different place to work. Not here, though. Here, I'm staying here for 8 years, September 3rd, 2030. Let's just be clear.
We're marking our calendars. Okay.
Yes. But one of the reasons was I needed an environment that was better fit for me. And coming here that's what I found. And hopefully you'll find the same thing as you get more acclimated and meet more people, because we really are a lot of fun. We're fortunate. We hired an IT guy that has a personality. That's unusual.
Jonah's great.
And, he's kind of like my brother in that way. My brother's an IT person, but you wouldn't know it because he's really funny. And he puts things like Jonah does. He puts it into terms that you can understand when he's talking to you, which is unusual sometimes. But we try to hire good people. We try to build good teams. We try to provide that support for managers to do what they need to do. And to that end, I know you're at a seminar all day today, which is the day that we're recording this. So tell me about that.
Oh, okay. So I was at the Prescott Area Human Resources Summer Conference today. So I got to meet some other human resource professionals in the area, which was great. And they had 3 different speakers. They were all amazing. Amy, the fire chief, or the police chief of Prescott.
She wants to be the fire chief.
I got to meet Amy, and she presented on a personality assessment called DISC, which was great. They had a couple different attorneys talk about employment law, one talking about inclusivity, specifically around LGBTQ issues. So it was great. It was a really informative day, and it was good to meet some people locally and start to build those connections with other HR people in the area that I can reach out to. So
yeah, and that's going to be really important, is building that network, especially on the governmental side, because there's some different things that we have to do than what other people have to do. But then there's a lot of, hey, this is federal law. It doesn't matter who you are. You have to follow this.
Right.
But having those connections, being able to visit with them, and, meeting Amy, I went through Prescott area leadership with Chief Bonnie, and we became friends there and have been friends for years ever since, and just have she is awesome to hang out with. As a matter of fact, I was with her last night, and her and Chief Tyser and Chief Dura. We just had a really nice time socializing. And you said you met Brad Fain.
I met him during my panel interview. So,
oh, that's right.
Yeah. So I met him during the interview process, and so I'm getting to know people and putting faces with names, so that's good.
And when we did the interview process here, of course, we need an after-action review on that one and see what we could have done better, what we did okay and what we could have done better. But we brought that outside panel in because we thought, a neutral third party, their input would be good for us, so that it's not just, hey, this is what we think. Tell us from a professional standpoint what you think. And then Chief Dura was on that panel as well for Prescott Fire. And that gave us that fire perspective along with the other folks. APS was represented, Prescott Valley Chamber of Commerce was represented, and then Fain Signature Group with Brad. Brad and I actually did a podcast together. It was his podcast. It was supposed to be 25 minutes long, and we started talking about leadership and comparing leadership books and leadership philosophies. An hour later, they shut the cameras off and we kept talking.
Wow.
He is a fascinating man that is really committed to learning, continual learning regarding leadership, management, business, and at the same time growing his folks that work with him.
Yeah, that community panel was one of my favorite panels. I mean, they were all great. I don't want to say anything. They were all great. But the community panel was really something different I'd never experienced as a candidate.
Right.
And it also allowed me to know how important this position and this service is to the community. That this isn't just about you guys making a decision. It was you're involving the community that you serve.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was great. And as a candidate, I enjoyed getting to meet those people and get their perspective and what they were looking for in an HR manager. They asked great questions. So.
Well, and there are people that can give you insight from their perspective. We see us one way, but others in the community may see us a different way. Not negatively, but maybe just a little bit different. And the other thing we did was really to test your patience.
And you tested it.
And that was put you in a truck with Captain Eric Merrill for like an hour and a half to give you a tour. And we thought, hey, if the two candidates stay after that, we know they're pretty committed.
Eric and I had a great time. That was really fun. And again, really outside the box, I think, in terms of a hiring process to give someone time like that with a candidate that wasn't technically an interview. So he could really ask anything. And we just got to know each other and spend time together. And he took me to stations. And I thought that it was really fun. I didn't know what to expect that day.
Right.
But I mean, Eric was so fun.
Did he talk a lot?
Of course he did.
Yeah.
I talk a lot too, so we both talked.
It's perfect. And I know that him and Lance became close.
They did.
Your fiance.
Yes.
So
they have a little bit of a bromance now. So yeah. Lance asks about Eric all the time. And so, yeah.
Well, at least you have that relationship. And I have to say that I stole that idea from Westminster, Colorado.
Okay.
Because when I went through their hiring process, they didn't have an outside panel, but they did have multiple different panels. When I went through their chief hiring, I think that was, I want to say 12 years ago now. But as part of the 2-day process, they took us out, except they put two candidates together and took us on a tour of their community because they're very proud of what they've built in Westminster, and they should be. And they wanted to show us how they developed certain areas, what they were looking at for other areas, and what the next prime locations for development were. And so it was a good overall view of the community itself, which made me really excited to be there. And to be honest with you, I still think fondly of the city of Westminster, Colorado. And one of the things I want to do is set up a field trip for you and Chief Para to go to Westminster and visit with their HR folks and some of their other department heads to find out what are they doing that attracts people to them, and not only attracts them, but they retain. When I called their HR manager just before COVID, it was the same HR manager that was there when I interviewed, and she remembered me, and she's like, yeah, people don't leave.
Wow. Yeah.
The only time they leave is when they're recruited for a higher level position, but they have an amazing leadership program, and I would like to take a look at what they have more closely and then find out what might fit CAFMA for that.
Yeah, it sounds like they're definitely doing some things right, a lot of things right. So it makes sense to go in and learn from that and pick up those best practices and what could we do and learn from them. Yeah.
And the other thing I was looking at with that, because we want to do an internal, but I talked to Gilbert Davidson with the town of Prescott Valley, and he's trying to do something similar. And I said, is there a way to kind of bridge the two programs and work together so that we don't just have firefighters and our IT in a room, we might have public works and the library and some law enforcement in a room. And just to gain those different perspectives, I think would be important for all involved.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, but that's I'm not adding anything to your plate right now. I know you're busy. We have time. So I won't assign a field trip until you're ready.
Okay. I'll
go
put
on a
it on
field
my
trip.
list, though, so it's in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
And when
A
we
list
get
of
there, we'll get there.
when we can get there.
Yeah.
Because I know there's a lot of work right now. We don't want to overwhelm you. Well, we already have anymore.
It's
Now
okay.
we will. Yeah.
It's okay. It's all good work. It's all good work.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on this week. I know it's getting late in the day for recording, and I'm sure you have stuff to do. And
Well, thank you for having me. This has been fun. I hope that it's been good for your viewers to get to know me a little bit better, and I hope they'll reach out and say hi, stop by my office, and I hope, like I said, to be out to the stations and see people as well.
And there are certain groups of people who come by the office just to meet the new folks that come in, whether it's an admin assistant or HR manager, so they can put a face with the name. And that's kind of what we want to do today, because it's going to take a while for you to get out everywhere.
Yeah.
So again, thank you, Jonah. Thanks as always.
Thanks, Jonah.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
And for all of you out there, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And thanks for watching. Or listening. Whatever.